The Lion of Katanga, they once called him. Georges Clement, ex-planter, ex-Congo mercenary leader. One of Chombe's generals, he led a motley collection of adventurers in the Congo uprising. He fought his way to Rwanda, was repatriated to Belgium, and finally settled in England in Fulchester, where he married. But the Lion couldn't forget his old ways, and today he finds himself in Fulchester Crown Court, charged with treason.
Now, members of the jury, as you know, the charge against Georges Clement is treason. The prosecution will show that whilst he was living in this country, he planned with others a rebellion in the island of Santa Isabella, which was one of Her Majesty's territories, and that he later led an armed revolt on that island. Now, treason is an offence against allegiance, and the prosecution case is that Georges Clement owed allegiance to Her Majesty at all material times. The witnesses I shall call...
Mr. Parsons, before you leave the topic of allegiance, there are a couple of points that I think should be made. I only interrupt because the concept of allegiance is perhaps a little difficult.
Yes, I'm grateful, my lord.
The first point, members of the jury, is that the defendant does not hold a British passport and never has held one. Now, that is a point which he may intend to make.
My lord, I'm quite content to disclose this aspect of the defence's case. My client, Georges Clement, is a Belgian national and holds a Belgian passport. As such, I submit he owed no allegiance to Her Majesty the Queen and cannot be guilty of treason.
I am obliged to you, Mr. Lotterby. Members of the jury, you've heard the defence emphasise that the defendant is not and never has been a British citizen. Now, whether or not he held allegiance to this country is a matter which you, and not I, must eventually decide. Now, what is allegiance? The dictionary defines it as the duty to a sovereign or government. Now, it might help you if I read what a distinguished judge has said on the subject. He said, a man may owe allegiance in two different ways. A British subject owes what's called natural allegiance, and a man who is not a British subject only owes allegiance as the result of having come within the king's realm, and thereby put himself under the protection of the king, as it is called. Thus, an alien can owe allegiance and can commit treason. Mr. Parsons?
My lord, I'm obliged. Members of the jury, it is a prosecution's case that whilst the accused was himself living in this country, he owed allegiance, and that he never ceased to owe allegiance because when he left this country to go to Santa Isabella, he left his wife and child here, and he left his property here under the protection of the Crown. Now, as you no doubt know, Santa Isabella is at this moment independent and self-governing, but that does not assist the accused because at the time of the alleged revolt, it was still one of Her Majesty's territories. Now, my first witness...
Just a moment, Mr. Parsons. I understand that the defendant is a Belgian national. Mr. Lotterby, have you arranged for an interpreter to be heard to assist him?
Oh, my lord, my client does understand the language. He will endeavour to give his evidence in English.
Right.
I believe he speaks English fluently, my lord.
Very well. Let us proceed, Mr. Parsons.
My first witness is Simon Chase.
Simon Chase, please.
What is your religion?
C of E.
Take the book in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Now, you are Simon Edward Chase of 10 Reed Street, Fulham, London.
I am.
Now, what is your profession, Mr. Chase?
Freelance telereporter.
Try and avoid using slang, Mr. Chase. Not everybody uses or understands the same slang.
Very well, my lord. What I mean is I'm a freelance TV journalist. I make film reports and sell them to television companies.
Oh, you work for the BBC?
Yeah, and ITV, whoever's prepared to pay.
Now, do you particularly specialise in any kind of story, Mr. Chase?
Yeah, I specialise in trouble.
Trouble, Mr. Chase?
Wars, revolutions, famines, whatever, wherever.
Look, I'm in favour of brevity in court, Mr. Chase, but it is possible to be too succinct.
Very well, my lord. What I mean is that I'm prepared to go anywhere in the world where there's the kind of story that I specialise in. I don't mind whether it's a chinless wonder trying to ride a bike up Everest or a revolution in Pago Pago. If I think it's got human interest, drama, I go out and get it.
Mercy.
Yes, it would be true to say, would it not, that you specialise in overseas stories?
Yeah, well, there's no point doing stories in this country. Anything worthwhile is usually covered by the staff men.
Yes. Now, you were on the island of Santa Isabella at the time of the alleged revolt, were you not?
Yeah, I was there when Clement and his thugs landed on
Yes,
Blackbeard's...
There are 1 or 2 points I'd like to clarify before we get to the landing.
Yeah, okay.
Why did you go to the island of Santa Isabella?
Well, I could smell a good story brewing.
Mr. Chase.
I'll explain, my lord.
Please.
Well, as you no doubt know, the island of Santa Isabella is in the Caribbean. It was due for independence in June of this year.
And when did you go to the island?
March this year. Well, I'd heard there'd been a threat of UDI if the British government handed over to the People's Party.
But the People's Party had a majority in the House of Assembly of Santa Isabella, did it not?
Yeah, but the elections in Santa Isabella are as bent as a hairpin.
Bent, Mr. Chase?
Well, crooked, fixed. The party that's in power always brings in new electoral rules, new electoral boundaries, just to make sure next time they get in with a whacking great majority.
I see.
Well, I'd heard that some white planters were prepared to put up some money to finance a revolt.
My lord, this is hearsay, of course.
Yes, I agree, Mr. Lotterby. But on the other hand, there obviously were these rumours going around, and I think it's right that we should take judicial note of them. On the other hand, Mr. Chase, I'd be obliged if you would confine your evidence to matters which you yourself perceived.
Yeah, very well, my lord.
Now, where did you first meet Mr. Clement?
In Katanga at the time of the Congo troubles. I was the first journalistic interview with him before Katanga fell.
So you knew Mr. Clement before you went to Santa Isabella?
Yeah, I did.
Now, did you interview Mr. Clement on Santa Isabella?
No, I found him in Honduras.
Honduras?
This is a republic in Central America, my lord.
Yes, I was aware of the location of the country, Mr. Parsons.
Oh, my apologies, my lord. Now, Mr. Chase, as a result of information you received, you traced Mr. Clement to Honduras.
Yeah, Trujillo.
Yes, Trujillo in Honduras.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, did you succeed in interviewing Mr. Clement there?
Yeah, I did.
Now, my lord, at this point, I'd like to introduce this interview in evidence. I have a transcript of the interview, but if your lordship is agreeable, I would prefer to show a film of the interview here in court.
Well, films and tape recordings can be tampered with, Mr. Parsons.
Yes, I am aware of that, my lord, but the typescript can be equally erroneous. I suggest the best thing would be to show the film and allow the jury to make up their own minds.
Do you have the necessary equipment in court?
Yes, my lord.
Yes. Mr. Chase, what was your precise function in the filming of this interview?
Well, I asked the questions and took care of the sound recording equipment.
Who was the cameraman?
Freelance Mexican I'd worked with before, Diego Santana.
Will you be calling Mr. Santana, Mr. Parsons?
No, my lord. I regret he's unavailable. He is at this moment in Chile on an assignment.
Who edited the film, Mr. Chase?
I did. After we'd shot the interview, Santana handed over the exposed film to me. I edited it along with the soundtrack.
And no one else was involved?
No, just the two of us.
Mr. Lotterby, since you'll be able to cross-examine Mr. Chase, and he seems to have been the sole originator of this film, I see no reason why I shouldn't allow it in evidence.
I have seen the film, my lord. I wasn't going to object to it.
Oh, very well. Right, proceed, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, my lord. My lord, whilst the equipment is being set up, it might assist the jury if Mr. Chase were to describe the circumstances of the interview.
Very well.
Now, Mr. Chase, this film we're about to see was filmed in Trujillo in Honduras.
That's right.
Now, where exactly?
In the garden of Clement's Hotel.
He was staying there quite openly.
No, he was registered under the name of Weber, Carl Weber.
But you found him nonetheless.
Yeah, well, there's only 3 hotels and 4 brothels in Trujillo. It wasn't hard.
Yes. Now, was Mr. Clement surprised to see you?
Yeah, he was.
But he granted you the interview.
Yeah, well, he knew me from the Congo. There was no point him denying he was Clement. Besides, I think he figured if he gave me the interview, I'd clear off.
Yes. Now, when was the interview shown on British television?
April 9th, 1973, ITV.
Yes. That was just after the uprising.
Yeah.
Yes. My lord, I believe the equipment is ready.
Then you may proceed, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, my lord. Thank you.
Good day. It's the 7th of March, 1973. My name's Simon Chase. I'm standing in the gardens of a small hotel in Trujillo, Honduras. I'm going to be speaking to Mr. George Clement. Mr. Clement, what exactly are you doing here in Honduras?
I'm here on business.
What kind of business?
Private.
Some of your officers from your old Congo unit are here. Duplessis, Schneider, LaPlane.
We meet from time to time.
In Honduras?
Different places.
Oh, it's just an old comrades' reunion, is it?
We are here on business.
Well, there's no war on here.
War has not always been my business. I was a planter before I became a soldier.
You're looking for a plantation in Honduras?
Yes.
What kind of plantation?
We have not decided yet.
Coffee plantation. You used to grow coffee in the Congo, didn't you?
I had a fine plantation, built up from nothing. Just scrub and jungle when I started. Took me 20 years. Those savages, they destroyed it in 2 hours. Just 2 hours. They destroyed everything.
They killed your wife, didn't they? No wonder you feel bitter. You thinking of starting here again? Or in Santa Isabella?
Why do you ask that?
I just thought you might be thinking of settling down there.
It's the same story there, just like the Congo. They are going to give everything to the savages. The politicians are giving away everything that people built up for years. It will all be handed over, unless you fight.
Is that what Schneider and Duplessis are doing here?
I answer no more questions.
Did the Santa Isabella Loyalist Party get in touch with you?
I answer no more questions. The interview is over.
So this is the extent of the interview, Mr. Chase.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, did you speak to Mr. Clement again?
No, he wouldn't see me again, but I managed to get a word with one or two of his men.
Yes, and was the accused present on that occasion?
Yeah, he turned up later. Tried to stop them talking. They'd been drinking.
How did you know they were Clement's men?
Well, they said they were. Besides, Schneider and Duplessis, his officers tried to... they were fussing round them, you know, like mother hens.
Yes. Did they say why they were into here?
Yeah, they said they were going to form a white army of liberation.
You actually heard these men describe themselves as that?
Yeah, some of them meant him as a joke, but most of them meant it.
Now, how long did you stay into here after the interview with Mr. Clement?
About another week, then I flew back to Santa Isabella. I figured the invasion couldn't be far off.
Yes, and you were present when the invasion took place?
Yeah.
Well, how did you know where it was going to be?
Well, there's only 3 possible landing places on the island. I was lucky. I happened to choose the right one.
Yes, Blackbeard's Bay.
Yeah,
Did you see Mr. Clement on the beach?
I did.
Now, you couldn't have been mistaken.
No, I knew him.
And was he armed?
Yeah,
You saw a gun in his hand.
I did.
Now, what happened when the invaders landed?
Well, there was a detachment of Royal Marines and armed police waiting for them.
Yes. Was there any shooting?
Yeah,
And were there any casualties?
25 dead, few wounded.
And on the invaders' side?
Clement lost about a dozen men. On the other side, 5 armed police, 8 native policemen.
Yes, and as we know, Mr. Clement and 1 or 2 of his men managed to escape.
Yeah, they did.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chase.
How many men did Mr. Clement have under his command at Trujillo?
35?
35. Hardly an impressive invasion force.
No, it was pathetic. Besides, I was told by Schneider that they
No,
were...
Mr. Clement was second in command in the Congo?
Yeah, Schneider said they were expecting 150, 200 men and guns.
How much was the force that landed at Blackbeard's Bay?
30?
30, even less than the number you saw at Trujillo.
Probably couldn't get the others sobered up in time.
Was this mammoth invasion force heavily armed?
What, rifles, sidearms?
No automatic weapons, no mortars, no rocket launchers?
They had a Bren.
1 Bren, that all.
Yeah. I think they were waiting for cache of arms on the beach. There were some white planters waiting for Clement to lead them.
Oh, was there?
No?
What went wrong?
My lord, the witness cannot possibly answer that question.
I take your point, Mr. Parsons. On the other hand, I think it helps us all if we have an understanding of the background of the case. And after all, it is only a background. It doesn't touch the accused.
Mr. Chase, what went wrong with the invasion of Santa Isabella?
Well, in my opinion, I think Clement's backers got cold feet.
Backers, Mr. Chase?
Well, somebody had to supply the money for the arms and so forth. Financing a revolution can be expensive.
Who were these backers?
Well, the people who didn't want the island to become independent, the ones with most to lose, the businessmen, planners, etc.
And in your opinion, these men sacrificed Mr. Clement to political necessity?
I don't know about necessity. They certainly sacrificed him.
He was the scapegoat?
Yeah, he was the pig in the middle. He had to be the loser, whatever happened.
Oh, why do you say that?
Well, it's obvious.
Not to me, Mr. Chase.
My lord, if the invasion had been a success, Clement would have been lost in the background.
Well, why?
Well, what supposedly popular revolution's going to admit it hired an ex-Congo mercenary to do its fighting?
But this revolution failed, Mr. Chase.
Exactly, so he was the scapegoat. Somebody had to be the fall guy. Clement was the mug.
Now, Mr. Chase, you said you were at Blackbeard's Bay when this invasion force landed.
That's right.
You said you saw Mr. Clement on the beach.
I did.
Yet the security forces failed to take him.
Yeah,
How close were you to Mr. Clement?
about 30 yards.
You paced out the distance, did you?
No, of course not.
So you just estimated the distance.
Yeah.
Well, could it have been 40 yards?
Yeah?
50?
No, I don't think so.
But you're not sure.
No.
Did this landing take place in broad daylight?
No, they landed about 2 a.m.
When it was dark?
Oh, the rockets went up as soon as they landed.
Rockets? You mean flares?
Flares and rockets.
Well, hardly the most reliable form of illumination in which to make a positive identification, Mr. Chase.
Well, it wasn't hard. I was looking out for him.
How was Mr. Clement dressed?
Sort of camouflage battle dress.
How were the other invaders dressed?
Same way.
Well, did he wear any special flashes or distinguishing insignias on his battle dress?
No.
I'd like you to have a look at a photograph. Thank you. Is this a photograph you took of the invaders after they had surrendered?
Yeah, that's the photograph.
Exhibit number 2, my lord. As you'll see, my lord, all the invaders had blackened faces. Mr. Chase, was Mr. Clement's face black too?
Yeah?
And you're asking the court to believe that you were able positively to identify a man in battle dress with a blackened face at a distance of up to 50 yards at night on a beach illuminated only by flares? Well, by the look of those men, I should think their own mothers would have difficulty in recognizing them. Chase, you said there was some shooting where the invaders landed.
Yeah, as soon as the flares went up, the shooting started.
Who fired first?
I don't know.
Well, was it the security forces or the invaders?
Well, I couldn't see.
Strange, isn't it? When you claim to have seen so much else that was happening.
Well, when bullets start to fly, you get your head down.
Precisely, Mr. Chase. Was any warning given by the security forces?
No.
You didn't hear any challenge?
Nope.
So they could have opened fire first.
Yeah.
Approximately how many of the security forces were lying in ambush for the invaders?
75.
How were they armed?
Rifles, revolvers.
Automatic weapons?
Yeah?
Rocket launchers?
Yeah?
So the invaders didn't stand a chance, did
No.
they?
Not a hope in hell.
How long did this battle last?
About 5 minutes.
Hardly a battle at all.
No.
How did it end?
Clement lost about 14 men dead or wounded. They just surrendered.
Hardly what we would expect from a band of mercenaries commanded by a celebrated ex-Congo mercenary leader.
Well, I don't know about commanded. I think that's putting it a little optimistically.
Oh, you mean Mr. Clement wasn't in command?
I mean it was like the Congo, a bunch of psychopaths and aging thugs out for what they could get. He was paying them, so they did as he told them, more or less.
Oh, come now, Mr. Chase, you are being unfair to Mr. Clement, are you not? In the Congo, both before and during the Troubles, he was held in the highest esteem, was he not?
By whom?
Ordinary, decent-minded people.
Yeah, well, that all depended on whose side you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chase.
Yes, Mr. Chase, whose side was Mr. Clement on?
Chombi's, of course.
Yes, he knew Clement in the Congo.
Oh, yeah, I knew him in the Congo. He commanded the 14th Commando. I followed them round for 2 or 3 weeks.
My lord, I must protest in my learned friend's line of questioning. What possible relevance can past events in the Congo have to an alleged invasion of the Caribbean in 1973?
My lord, it was not I, but my learned friend himself who first mentioned the Congo.
On the contrary, it was Mr. Chase, your
Let
witness.
them know about the Congo. I have nothing to be ashamed of.
Mr. Clement, you must not interrupt.
It is right that people should understand the truth about the Congo. They will then know why I've done what I've done.
Let us hope so, Mr. Clement. Mr. Parsons, in view of the fact that our time is not unlimited, I'd be obliged if you keep this new line of questioning as brief as possible.
As your lordship pleases. Mr. Chase, it is right, is it not, that Clement was convicted on certain criminal charges arising out of his activities in the Congo?
My lord, I protest to this. For one thing, my client is insistent that he's never before been at a criminal trial in his life.
He was tried in his absence after he skipped the country.
Well, I don't think we can have mention of a conviction obtained in the accused's absence.
Well, my lord, charges as well as convictions may be used against an accused.
Yes, it's all hearsay.
No, I was there.
Oh, you were you? Oh, very well then. We'll proceed, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, my lord. Now, what impression did you form of the defendant's character while you were in the Congo?
Well, he's a hard man, physically brave, not unintelligent, but he's like all the mercenaries, a nutter.
You mean that Mr. Clement was insane?
Well, no, not exactly.
Well, what do you mean, Mr.
Well, I
Chase?
mean he's the kind of guy you can't reason with. Can I give you an example of how he behaved?
Very well.
I was in a small market town when his men took him. It's a small place on the Katanga border called Juba. There was very little local resistance. The gendarmerie had fled. Now, his men arrived in that town and went straight to the bars and whorehouses, just like they always did. They found a bar with some liquor and they started celebrating. Now, that bar had been booby-trapped. A bomb went off. 17 of his men were killed. He went loco. He rounded up the local townspeople and asked them who put the bomb in the bar. Nothing happened, so he shot 17 Africans there and then.
Yes, it's a horrifying story, Mr. Chase, but such actions are not unknown in war, particularly in civil war.
Yeah, but it didn't end there, my lord. After they shot the first 17, they went back to the villages and asked them again who was responsible for putting the bomb there. Nothing happened again. They shot another 17. Then they went back again. 51 people died that day.
It was not like that. He is lying.
Mr. Clement, you must not interrupt.
But what he said is not true.
Then you must wait until it is your turn to give evidence, and then you can redress the balance.
Now, Mr. Chase, did Mr. Clement ever find who planted the bomb?
No. I doubt if any of the villagers did it. I don't think they had any explosives or knew how to make booby traps.
And what happened next?
Well, Clement heard that a force of United Nations soldiers was advancing on the town. An Ethiopian battalion. It's funny, none of those mercenaries ever fancied mixing it with the Ethiopians. They all cleared off fast.
Mr. Clement, have you any further questions, Mr. Parsons?
No, my lord.
Then you may leave the witness box, Mr. Chase.
My lord, I would point out that this witness's story, however horrifying, is completely unsubstantiated, and moreover reveals considerable personal animosity towards my client.
Mr. Lotterby, I think it would be better advised to make this point in your final address to the jury.
I propose to do so, my lord. However, I submit that even if this story were true, and you've heard my client deny it, these alleged events occurred in Katanga, whilst my client was a citizen of that short-lived republic. Now, they can have no bearing on what is alleged to have occurred on the beach at Blackbeard's Bay in Santa Isabella.
Well, that is for the jury to decide.
On.
My lord, my next witness is Detective Chief Superintendent Lane of the Special Branch.
Detective Chief Superintendent Lane, please.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I shall give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Detective Chief Superintendent Orwin Lane, Special Branch.
Now, before I begin my examination of this witness, I'd like to request that his evidence be heard in camera.
My lord, the witness's evidence may surely only be heard in camera if it's likely to be a risk to national security.
That, my lord, is why I wish it to be heard in camera.
The case of the Queen against Clement will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.